Welcome to Austin Tech Connect, the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Presented to you by NetSpend. Homegrown in Austin, NetSpend has been a leading provider of consumer and business payment solutions for almost 25 years. From prepaid cards to mobile bank accounts to money movement services, NetSpend connects people, brands, and payment products to deliver innovative financial solutions.
Everybody, and welcome to Austin Tech Connect. This is the podcast about the future of Austin's technology community. My name is Tom Singer, and I am with the Austin Technology Council, a 31-year-old organization that was founded to help bring the technology community together. And now, 30 plus years later, we're reinventing the organization because we once again need to bring our now large tech ecosystem together to cover the world of startups, growth companies, and the big tech that is all here. So that's what we're trying to do, and we want you to join us. Every week on this podcast, I try to bring interesting people with a whole different variety of ideas and jobs from different companies around tech. And today, the topic is going to be working for a tech company, but working remotely from Austin when the company is based somewhere else. We hear a lot about the fact that Austin, over the last several years, even going back before the pandemic, was a place that people moved to and often just worked remotely. But with that comes a lot of challenges. So I have somebody that we're going to talk to who is in sales for technology. It's technology for the automotive industry. And however, he did work in selling software in the security space as well. In fact, he's been in tech sales for about 10 years. And we're going to talk about what it's like to work here when you don't have any coworkers here and how do you get engaged in the community. So please welcome to Austin Tech Connect, Jake Pusch. Jake, welcome to the show.
Tom, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So for those of you who don't know Jake Pusch, he sells merchandising technology in the automobile industry, but he's been in sales for tech for over 10 years. And he just is really passionate about meeting people, learning their story, having conversations, making friends, and finding ways to be a problem solver, both inside the technology he sells and just out in the general population. He likes to help people. So Jake, how did you get to Austin in the first place? I know you didn't come in the big wave of the last 7 or 8 years. You've been here a little longer. How'd you get to Austin?
Yeah, great question. So, those of you that are listening probably remember when Austin was on MTV's Real World back in the day.
Was that like 20 years ago?
It was a good, solid 20 years ago. But I remember watching that and just being like, wow, Austin, Texas. And ever since seeing that, Austin's just kind of been, in my head as a place that I wanted to be, because I grew up in a very small town and I always wanted to be in a bigger city. So I moved here back in 2013. And at the time I was working for a rental car company and just really got involved in the tech scene. So I've been here for a little over 10 years now.
Nice. And so you grew up in Pennsylvania, and after college, you ended up in California trying to make your way there. And I know this about you because I know you. You actually moved away for a year. Where'd you go?
Yeah, I moved to Los Angeles for a year.
What made you go to LA?
Well, you and I both share this, right? We wanted to be an actor, and part of that is still with us. I went off to LA to pursue acting for a year, got torn to pieces, and now I'm back in Austin, Texas.
Are you glad to be here?
Yeah, it's great to be here. I've always known since I moved here back in 2013 that Austin was going to be long-term for me. So it's good to be back.
So when did you get into tech sales, and were you remote to begin with? How did you get started in that world?
Yeah. So I was actually working at a logistics company at the time, and I was selling international shipping, so sexy, to all these companies in Austin, Texas. And I remember sitting down with a semiconductor company and their CEO, and we were going through implementation. And I remember he sat me down. He was like, Jake, your software and technology is just not working. Like, I don't care that you can get us in Australia 2 days faster than FedEx, And ever since that conversation, it made me think about the importance of technology and having a technology that you could sell that makes sense for a business. So after that, I took a job at a large technology firm that has their hands in kind of every pot, So that's how I got in technology.
So you've worked in a couple of different spaces in sales and technology. You spent a lot of time in the security software world, and security is a really important piece of all technology. What was that experience like?
Yeah, security is so fascinating. I mean, you have cybersecurity, which every company is investing a lot of money in, right? Every CFO is like, we have to set aside X amount for cybersecurity. And then you have physical security. And this is where you have ex-CIA, ex-FBI personas that come from the government and go to these Fortune 100 companies and protect their executives, their businesses, their locations and whatnot. And a lot of these companies have security operations centers where they have Jason Bourne level TV screens where they're watching, I don't know, like a severe weather approach a specific building, or they are watching their executive travel and making sure that everything's protected. So it's really interesting coming from that space. And all my calls and conversations were with ex-FBI people and ex-CIA people. So I have a lot of stories from those days.
So you made a big switch though, and left that world for automotive technology. What is the company you're working for now, and what's the biggest difference between working in that high level where former FBI and CIA people are either the founder or a certain person in the company making all the big decisions, to now working with auto dealers? And I'm not saying there's anything better or worse either way, but it's a different clientele.
It is definitely a different clientele, and yeah, I would say the biggest difference in what I'm doing today. I work at a company called Dealer Image Pro, and we sell merchandising technology. And for those of you out there that are not familiar with merchandising technology, it's software that's made to ensure your photos look good and consistent online. So whenever you go to buy a car, Tom, if you were shopping right now, you would go to a dealer's website, and if their photos look like crap, that is not good for the dealership, because the customers always see their photos and videos before the sales process even starts, right? So we ensure that our dealers have a really pristine inventory is what we're doing, right? So that's kind of white glove merchandising. But I'd say like the biggest difference is just building a relationship. And a lot of times I'm talking to general managers and owners, and these guys, live the American dream. I mean, they came from the bottom up, starting, as a detailer or, washing cars. And now they are running a dealership at a very high level. So these guys are, sales like geniuses, right? Like they came from the bottom up and they understand their business inside and out. So the conversations are definitely different, and they like to see results. They like to understand the ROI. They like to just get to the brass tacks of the conversation, as opposed to when I was working and talking with FBI, former CIA agents, and they were just very paranoid and very, very different. They had a different kind of business acumen, right?
So, it's interesting because you talk about this merchandising, software that's there for, auto dealers, and making sure that the presentation of the used cars or the new cars that they have for sale is consistent and look beautiful, et cetera. It just sort of reminds me that tech touches everything now. It's only been, 30 or 40 years where there were some tech companies and then there were companies. But in a lot of ways, every company is now a tech company, don't you think?
Yeah, it's insane to see. And me going from selling to large enterprise companies like cybersecurity software and security software and cloud software to the automotive space. I just went to a conference out in Las Vegas called Digital Dealer, and this is all about innovative technology that's out there for these dealerships to change the way they view technology in their business and implement new strategies. And merchandising is one of the first things that comes up on the list. Like how good does your product look on your website before the sales cycle even begins, right? And there's a lot of ways you could go about doing that. And artificial intelligence is really big right now in the automotive space, and it's touching really every vertical that's out there. But it's really starting to take off. And what I've seen in the automotive industry is, there's people that are either exploring technology and innovative thinkers. It's that whole idea of crossing the chasm, right? Being early adopters of technology. And then there's a lot of general managers and owners that just refuse to look and evaluate at what's out there, right? There's new methods, like this technology is moving fast. And I think it's really important for companies, not just in automotive, to explore what all is out there to make sure that they are operating at the most efficient manner possible, right?
So this company is not based in Austin. Most people who I interview on this show are their company is based in Austin or has a large footprint here in town. And so this company is based in California, and it's not the first time that you've worked remotely where you were the only person, who was in Austin. So let's talk about moving to that remote worker where nobody else is here and you're reporting to a boss that could be thousands of miles away. What was that like the first time when you were in security, and what's that like, now?
Yeah, it's, at first, I actually worked remote before it was cool, before 2020. I had a remote job, not to brag, but yeah, I got the first remote job back in 2018. And it was so different working remote because I was able to have a little bit more flexibility in my schedule and, get stuff done around the house, but also at the end of the day, like get stuff done at work, right? Like you have that flexibility working remote, but it's also so important that you schedule time in your community, in this case, Austin, Texas, to go to events like at Austin Technology Council, go to events that other sales professionals are going to. And in Austin, you can literally attend 3 to 4 networking events in a single day. There's something going on here all the time.
I want to interject. Like 20 years ago, I was interviewed by the Austin Business Journal about the networking culture in tech in Austin. And I made a comment that you can easily have a 3 name tag day. That, you can go to a breakfast where they slap a sticky name tag on you. You can go to a lunch where they slap a name tag on you, and you go to a dinner where they hang a lanyard around your neck with your name tag. And so it's interesting to know that is still true, and that after the pandemic, that's coming back, because there are a lot of meetups and a lot of organizations that have a lot of events. But going back to something that you said, you talked about, working remotely gives you flexibility. What are some of the pluses and minuses of being that remote worker? Because there's a lot of people out there who go, yeah, these remote workers aren't working that hard. And there's other people who say, oh, they're more efficient if they're remote. What do you think are the pluses and minuses, and what's been your experience?
Yeah, I guess I'll start out with the positives, right? So you have that ability to get stuff done around the house, throughout the work week. So you're not, tied down to an office, right? You don't have to worry about commuting to and from the office, which, if anyone knows Austin, 35. It's always a parking lot, and you're listening to a podcast and whatnot. So I'd say,
there's probably people listening to us right now who are stuck in Austin traffic.
Yeah, 100%. And, if you are listening, thanks for listening, and make sure you subscribe. Shameless plug. But, it's important. Some people have families, some people have kids, some people have dogs. So it's always good. If you are disciplined, you can definitely get your work done and also be efficient in your personal life as well, like working remote. I'd say that some of the minuses would be distractions, right? Like
dogs and kids and spouses.
Dogs, kids, and spouses, and conversations that randomly pop up. And right now, I'm in my apartment building, and there's a leak in my building, so there's some noise going on outside that I didn't know was going to happen today. So, there's a lot of distractions that pop up. But again, if you are disciplined, you are blocking out your calendar, you're making sure you get your work done. You can easily have a day like for my schedule, I make sure I put it in the calendar, 6 a.m. I am going for a run or a workout, and making sure I have a clear head, drinking a lot of water before I start my day. But it's really, how disciplined are you? Because you can get bogged down by all those distractions for sure.
So one of the things that I've found in talking to people who work remotely, either they work here in Austin remotely, or they work for an Austin company somewhere else, and I cross paths with them, is that they feel a little disconnected from sort of the culture of the company or from the day-to-day. And I have a friend whose son was up he worked in the Silicon Valley for not a well-known company, but a 300 or 400 person company. And he was about 35 years old. He was up for a big promotion for about a year. He knew it was coming. His boss had kind of told him a few months earlier, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But during the pandemic, they had said, we're going to go fully remote. You don't have to come back. You can come back, but you can work from anywhere. So he moved his family to Tahoe, and the promotion came and it went to somebody else. And he asked his boss, like, what's the deal? You told me, a while back it was going to be mine. And he said, well, the person we gave it to, she's always in the office and she's always volunteering and she's there, going out afterwards. And just everybody feels more comfortable because she's here. And he was angry. And he is a son of one of my friends. And he called me because he's like, about this stuff. And he said, they told me I wouldn't be punished for working remotely. And I said, well, I don't think you've been punished. You just weren't rewarded. And so, how do you feel about that disconnect from the home office? And how do you work around that? Because you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. And yeah, Tom, and this could get really political really fast. But I wanted to start with the word political because there is that whole idea of, well, if you're going to come back to the office, you need to be vaccinated. And there's people that are comfortable with going into the office and being around other people. There's people that need to go into the office, like salespeople, sales professionals that need to be around other people to work at a high productivity level. And there's small companies that, you're working with your founder and, another employee. So it's important for you all to be together and have that connection with everyone in the office. Right. And, I think that it's important to be a part of the culture, and you have to be disciplined enough to carve out time to, have a meeting with your boss, have a meeting with your sales team, and just, get involved, with their culture. Maybe they're doing an event or like a virtual thing, but you have to be tied in with your company culture for sure. And there's a lot of companies that are doing it really well and doing virtual events. And for example, we're doing a Christmas party in Sacramento, so everyone is getting a trip out to Sacramento where we're headquartered, and we could all get together and have a good time. So it's important. And FaceTime is definitely different than what you and I are doing right now, on a screen, right? It's definitely more personable. You can have, different conversations, and just, you could pick up on, nonverbal cues a little bit quicker than you can, whenever you're doing something virtual. So there's a lot to be said about just carving out time throughout your day to get involved, and maybe just schedule time with some people on your team to get to know them and get to know the company culture. Like, you have to be disciplined enough to do that.
Well, I know when I moved to Austin, obviously this was 30 years ago, I worked in an office, with everybody, but I was young and we all became friends. We're still friends to this day. Some of the people who I worked with in my first couple of jobs in Austin. So being in there, you get to go to lunch together, you get to go to happy hour together, et cetera. How do you feel? And then you would be engaged in the community because you'd be participating in different things. Like you said, going to the Austin Technology Council or one of these meetups. What is the thing that you think a lot of people need to do if they are working remotely, if they want to have a connection to the community they live in addition to going to those networking events, those 3 name tag days, in addition to going to some of those meetups and stuff? What are some other things people can do to feel that they're connected to the overall community?
Yeah, there's so many things that we could do right now. There's meetup.com that you can leverage. There's Sweat Pals, which just came out. I think they're in Austin, and I think they're in Miami as well. And that's a really cool app that you can actually, if you're a runner, you could go to like a running event. If you're a volleyball player, you could go to a volleyball event, and you can meet a lot of cool people. But it's getting involved with organizations like yours, Austin Technology Council. I know I go to breakfast events and different events that you put on just so I can meet people that are like-minded and want to be around other people and, see what other people are doing to kind of, navigate this new way of the work life. Right. And, I think there's a lot to be said to seeing what all is out there. And it's, you're waking up and it's like you are working remote. You're going into your office, like in your house. So it's very, very important to identify some of the organizations like ATC that are putting on events that are going on a weekly or monthly basis for sure.
And I'll say something about before it's been announced. We're looking at actually at ATC starting either a monthly or a quarterly remote worker event. And so we're trying to see, a bunch of people have tried to do that. Do people want it? And so we're in the process of figuring that out. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Austin. You've lived here 10 years. What do you think is the difference between the tech scene in Austin when you moved here 10 years ago versus the tech scene today?
I mean, it's a tremendous difference. Like Austin it's one of those cities that it's not pigeonholed to one specific profession. Like you think of LA, you think of entertainment. New York, you think of finance. Silicon Valley kind of changed a little bit. San Francisco changed a little bit. They're going through some tough times, but you think about tech, where it's like Austin, you're now thinking about technology. You're thinking about fitness and health. You're thinking about the comedy scene that's here. I mean, there's so much going on in Austin, but the tech scene specifically, I mean, you have Oracle that moved their headquarters here. You have Samsung that's up north with their new manufacturing factory. You have so many startups that are coming here. And I think that is because Austin is so welcoming, and a lot of the founders and leaders, especially in the artificial intelligence space, are welcoming to those startups and business leaders that want to improve and grow. And a lot of people are entrepreneurs in Austin, so they want to meet like-minded individuals, and Austin is that hub, not just for founders and entrepreneurs and business leaders, but also AI, right, is thought to be the new hub of Austin, Texas. So it's definitely changed. When I moved here in 2013, it was, Austin was more known for that party lifestyle, I would say, than business. But over the years, it's definitely taken a turn, with South by Southwest and things like that. So it's been really fun to watch and really fun to be a part of.
So, it's interesting. You talk about people saying that, Austin is, quickly sort of an epicenter of AI. And, a lot of people, we've been talking about AI for the last 12 months, a lot since ChatGPT dropped and things like that. But if you go back, again, 20 years, a lot of the research that was done and a lot of the back end stuff that was done with IBM and their Watson, computer, which was, an early stage of this whole thing that we have with generative AI and things like that. A lot of the research was done here in Austin. So Austin has been sort of an AI hub since the beginning of AI hubs, if you will. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things. So when we look forward, what do you think is the future of Austin's, technology ecosystem?
Yeah, I think the future, it's only going to keep growing, the technology scene. You have Elon Musk, who moved here. You have Opportunity Austin, that's doing a phenomenal job of recruiting big companies like Oracle to move here. And they're incentivized to move here. And a lot of the executives fly here before they do so. And you're just welcomed with this culture of, it's just open and just like getting to know one another, sharing best practices. It's like, if I go to any other city, I don't necessarily feel like that. And, a lot of the organizations out there leading the way to kind of help link, big companies and startup companies and bring everyone together, like ATC and Opportunity Austin, are doing a really, really good job making sure that people feel comfortable and feeling like they're a good fit once they get here. So it's just, I think it's going to keep growing. And I mean, we're seeing it. Stubbs Barbecue is my favorite venue to go see a live concert. And I would say back in 2015, it was a nice, intimate venue and never got filled up with people. Now, when I go to see, like the other day, I went to go see a Boys Like Girls concert because I love punk rock and I love pop punk and I'm that kind of guy. The venue was completely filled. I mean, it was insane. So, I mean, you definitely see the growth, and I think that's led by technology and the tech growth in the sector.
Well, and you're right. I mean, we certainly are a lot more crowded of a city than we were when I moved here 30 years ago. But, the vibe still is there. I think it's changed a lot, but the vibe of being welcoming, I think we should never lose that, because I've found over the years that it is that, love of connecting, that love of helping others that has really sort of allowed Austin to grow in its own way. We never set out to be the second Silicon Valley. We set out to be the best Austin that we could be. And I think a lot of that comes from, people being willing to participate. And when they go out to venues, of course, you used to run into people you knew a lot more when it was a town of 800,000 people. It's a little different with 2.3 million when you go to Stubbs. You don't necessarily see friends all the time. But one of the things is we need to hold on to that thing where if you see somebody you're going to walk over and talk to them, you're going to introduce them, you're going to find out what they're trying to do. So I think that's a big important thing. And then also, like you mentioned, thank you, by the way, that, we need to have sort of that thread that runs through the tapestry of tech so that we still have a tech community. And that's one of the things we're trying to do at ATC. So Jake, before I let you go, I have a couple of questions that I ask everybody before they exit their interview here on this podcast. So the first question is, I personally believe community, collaboration, and conversations can solve all problems. So looking at those three words, community, collaboration, and conversation, which one resonates the most with you and why?
Oh, that's a tough question. And I'm gonna have to go with community. I'm gonna have to go with community because I think it's very important to be involved in your community, and it's very tough, right? Working remote and having a really strict schedule and a really busy schedule, but it's important to be involved in the community, and you have to kind of get out there and kind of be comfortable being uncomfortable, meeting new people, and just make sure that you are staying connected to the beating heart of Austin, Texas, because it truly is different, right? It's we talked about it being welcoming, and we never really set out to be this tech or AI hub, but it is, because everyone that's come here for a South by Southwest or come here for a networking event has really seen it. It's just a different level of community. And, Austin's a very big city, but it's definitely a smaller community, right? So I'd have to say community is very important.
Awesome. So my last question, if somebody was coming to visit Austin for the first time, maybe one of your friends from that small town that you grew up in, maybe somebody who works for Dealer Image Pro is going to come and visit you and go on some calls with you, where would you take them to get them a one view of Austin that you say the out-of-towner has to go there?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Loro off of South Lamar because, Aaron Franklin, and his partner, I think they opened like 5 years ago, and that place, just everything about it to me just speaks Austin, right? It's kind of got the outdoors with the lighting outdoors. It's got really good barbecue infused food, and everyone there is they're just smiling, and people are just talking to one another, and it's always pretty full, and it just has that Austin feel to it. So I'm going to have to go with Loro on that one.
Nice. Well, maybe they can come and sponsor my show. So that's great. So, hey, Jake, thank you for sharing your journey and what it's like to work remotely and sort of the story of what you're trying to accomplish and why you're in Austin. I appreciate it. Any last words?
No, Tom, thanks for having me. And, I can't stress this enough, guys. Like, if you are new to Austin, Texas, check out Austin Technology Council and the things that they're doing. Always check out the events online. But yeah, if you're new to Austin, feel free to reach out to me anytime on LinkedIn, or Tom and I. We're connectors here in the community. We've been doing this for a long time, and it's great to be on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. And thanks to everybody who tuned in and listened. The Austin Technology Council, we're trying to reinvent, and we're trying to be super relevant to helping everybody through startup, through big tech, and to be that thread that pulls everybody together. But if we're going to go back to our roots and be a grassroots organization, we can't do it without you, the grassroots. So find out how you can get involved. Visit us at austintechnologycouncil.org. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening every week. Make sure that your tech company joins the Austin Technology Council and helps us with our mission.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.